Are you looking for a fright? Well, maybe you should grab the next rag and brush it off. Because Fright-Rags will have the shirt and ghouls and maybe haunting and candy for you. Hi everybody, welcome to another episode of the Everything Horror Podcast, and tonight we got a nice little interview with the founder of the clothing company that you may have known by the name Fright-Rags, and this is none other than Ben Scrivens. How's it going, Ben?
Good. How are you doing?
I am good. I will once again just thank you so much for allowing me to talk with you, and I hope you have a fun time talking with me tonight too.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you having me on.
Oh, you're very welcome. So Ben, for somebody like me, and for those that are listening that can maybe get a better understanding of who you are, could you give us a small little origin story of what got you into the horror genre and how Fright Rags came to be?
Sure. Well, I started at a pretty young age liking horror movies. I watched Halloween when I was 4 years old. It was the network premiere of Halloween in 1981. It was October of 1981. And so I saw that on TV when I wasn't supposed to be watching it. And just, I don't know what it was, but that movie, it just made me fall in love with horror. I mean, I was four, so I mean, I didn't really know what that meant, but I really liked what I saw and wanted to see more of it. So it just stuck with me. So I just, at that young of an age, I became enamored with horror and tried to watch whatever I could. And of course, this was in the early '80s, and home video was just starting to take off. So it would be a few more years until I was able to rent them, and pretty much by the time I was 9 or 10, I could rent. My parents would let me rent almost whatever I wanted, so I could see a lot of different horror movies with my friends and by myself and stuff. And so I just loved the genre growing up. Have always been a fan. I've always just loved all sorts of horror movies. I was mostly a slasher fan, but I was always a slasher fan, so I gravitated towards those. But I loved the genre as I got older and read Fango and stuff like that. And then it wasn't until around 2003, the internet was obviously had been around for a while, but it was still sort of in its early years, and I had been on message boards and fan boards and things. And this is, of course, before Facebook and MySpace and all those other things. I would always gravitate towards message boards that were fan centric, that were people making stuff like masks, like making hockey masks that looked just like Jason and Freddy gloves and Michael Myers masks. I mean, the first thing I ever searched when I was online, literally the first thing I ever searched when I went on the internet for the first time was Captain Kirk 75 mask, because that's what I wanted, because I knew that's what the Michael Myers mask was. So I was always taken by these people that would make stuff, and it was so cool and so awesome looking, and I always wanted them, but I couldn't afford them because they were like $100. And I thought, I just want to make something. I've always been sort of creative, and I was a graphic designer by trade, and I was at a job that I liked, but I was just needing to let off some creative steam. And I had taken screen printing when I was younger and liked it, and thought maybe I could make some T-shirts. And so I came up with a few designs, and the first design I came up with was, it was back when the What Would Jesus Do craze was happening, and so I came up with What Would Jason Do, which is WW Hockey Mask D, and put that on a shirt and a couple other things. And people seemed to dig them. I posted on message boards, and people seemed like they would want to buy it, so I thought of a name and came up with a website over the Labor Day weekend in 2003, and that was my start.
Yeah, so Ben, you reminded me of my story too. Like when I was at a young age, and I was that dumb kid that I was curious of what I was hearing, even though my bedroom was like upstairs, and I could still hear something was going on in the living room. So of course I snuck
Mm-hmm.
down, and I'm probably, I don't know, freaking 7 or 8, and the film that was on the living room TV at the time was Bram Stoker's Dracula, and
Mm.
it was the part where it was the lady on the table with the werewolf scene, and I'm like watching for 10 minutes, and I'm just going, "What the hell is like what am I watching? Like am I even supposed to be watching this?" And then I eventually just went to bed, but it always stuck with me, like what the hell were they watching?
Wow,
So yeah, so that was my
that's
first
great.
experience, and so so you started in 2003, which this year would make 16 years, right? 20,
That's right.
2003. So
Mm-hmm.
first of all, I want to say congratulations on the 16 years. And the other thing that I'd like to know, which everybody had these moments, but what were some of the difficulties that you had to go through making Fright-Rags?
That's a good question. I think, I got into this not knowing anything about business, really. I mean, the company I was working for at the time, it was a very small company. I was one of 3 or 4 people. So I got to see a little bit of some inner workings of a company that way. But really, I had no other sort of exposure or knowledge of how business worked. I was kind of on the fly. Really, it, the thought was, let's just make some shirts based on horror movies, and that's really how it got off the ground. So I made a lot of mistakes. I still make mistakes. You just learn from doing, and I think the biggest thing that I learned was just that I had to jump in. One of the things, just as a give you sort of an example, I within the first 2 years of starting Fright-Rags, I sold a shirt to Hot Topic, which was really cool. I mean, they ordered 2,000 shirts, and I had to get them out in like 4 weeks, and it was crazy because they want them all folded and tagged and stickered and everything. And I'm not, it was literally just me at the time, and my printer was in town here in Rochester, so it was he and I doing all the work. Um, but I wasn't like a company with people and resources, and they're used to buying from companies like that. So I had to make this work on my own. But anyway, something like that, when they order 2,000 shirts, you have to fulfill the order. They get it, and they don't pay you for another 60 days or so. That's just normal. It's just how it is. So I had to float all that money on my credit card and things like that. So the day I got my check, it was like a $12,000 check, which I'd never seen that kind of money in my life, and needed to pay off all my bills because I was floating all that money for the shirts and stuff. And I went to my bank, and at the time I was using my personal bank, and I had a separate checking account, but I internally labeled Fright-Rags, but I just opened it up under my name. So I went to the bank, and I had the check. It was $12,000, and it was named under Fright-Rags, and I tried to deposit it. And they're like, we don't know what Fright-Rags is. And I'm like, well, that's my company. And I said, do you know what a DBA, or did you have a DBA? And I'm like, what is a DBA? And they're like, it's a doing business as name. I'm like, how do I even get that? And they're like, you have to go to the county clerk's office. So I drove downtown, found where the county clerk's office was, went in there, asked for a DBA, $30, got it, came back, put it on my account so I could deposit that check. I mean, it's literally stuff that you hear a word and you don't know what it means. You look it up and you try to understand what that means, and you just go with it. So, all the time obstacles come up, and you just have to figure them out and understand them. And it's funny, the more obstacles you go through, the more that just seem to pop up, and you navigate it, and you just try to figure it out.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, even when doing or starting this podcast that I do with my fiance, we went in just looking at it as a hobby, and we're just like, yeah, whatever. I mean, how hard can it be? And as you as we been around for 2 years, I say, well, my fiance and I think we've grown a lot, because I mean, when we first started doing this, we were actually using our phone to record our stuff. And then when it came
Mm.
down to interviews, we were using Skype and stuff, but this is before Skype added that cool new feature now where it like records your conversations now. So
Mm.
so back then, like 2 years or so ago, when we were talking to people overseas, you had to get that right volume and everything else. And I use Audacity because, I can't really afford the Adobe Premiere and stuff right now, but
Mm.
eventually maybe down the road. And then eventually I found this website that we're talking through right now, and I've been using it ever since for like people in the US anyway. As for overseas people, we haven't really had that many people to talk with as of lately,
Mm-hmm.
but with the whole, like I just mentioned, Skype allowing to record the full conversation now, I can actually use Skype now and get better quality.
Nice. That's great.
Yeah. And, it's just technology. Like, it's like with anything, if you're filming a movie or taking photos, like, technology upgrades every 2 3 years. So you either want to stick with it or you stick with the old and until it dies, I guess, like until your equipment no longer works and falls apart or something.
Yeah, that's true.
So how did that even come into play? Because I noticed on Fright-Rags, I forget how exactly you guys called it. I think it was like Fright-Rag Films. You guys actually have
Mm-hmm.
one short film called like November 1st.
Mm-hmm.
How did that idea come into play? Were you planning on like trying to make other type of short films, or what was the idea?
Yeah, I mean, we've done two so far. We've done November 1st, and then we've done the second one last year called Dead Neighbors, which is also on our YouTube channel. Yeah, so that idea came about a few years ago. We started working with a local theater called The Little. They're an art house theater here in Rochester, and we collaborate with them on a monthly screening series called Saturday Night Rewind. And so that means every there's one Saturday a month we get together and watch a movie, and we host a movie there, and it's usually a horror movie or some cult classic. And then usually in October we do every Saturday we host a movie, and it's great because there's just people from our community here that come out and support it, and it's just like watching a movie with friends. And we usually get 35 millimeter prints, or usually original prints, and it's fun. And the guys we work with over at the Little, they're filmmakers as well, so we thought it would be fun a couple of years ago when we were going to be showing Halloween, the original Halloween. I had recently bought an original print of it myself, and we were going to be showing that. And we thought it would be great to bring PJ Souls, of course, who played Linda in the film, to come out here to watch it with us, have her here as a guest appearance and things like that. And during our meetings about it, we would talk about like, oh, wouldn't it be cool to make like a movie, and what would it be about? Oh, what would Michael do on the next day after Halloween? Things like that. And the more we talked about it, the more we thought, well, heck, let's just go shoot it. And we just started shooting it. And then we even thought, what if PJ could be in it? So the day she arrived, or the day after she arrived here in Rochester, we had her come out to the location we were shooting and do her little cameo. And then it was great because Eric, one of the guys at the Little who was directing it, he ran home, edited it together, and then put the music in and everything, and then brought it back that night to the Little, and we debuted it right before Halloween. So it was a lot of fun. But then we thought the following year, last year, we would do another one, which we did, which was called Dead Neighbors, and that was going to play before Night of the Living Dead. So it's just something fun that we're doing. It does take a lot of time, so we have to be cognizant of that, but we do try to come up with some ideas and think it would be cool to do one a year if we can.
Yeah, that sounds like a great thing. And you guys must have some type of time where it's more of a slow season for you guys. If not, how do you normally go by picking like the time? Is it just by the orders or any type of just I'm trying to like I guess if you're
Like
looking
when
at
do we pick to shoot it?
yeah, like is there like a slow season that you guys have, or do you guys
I
just kind of
mean,
just go ahead?
it's never really slow. I mean, always the busiest time of year is usually September through the end of the year. That's when we're slammed. Um, and January and the first quarter is usually pretty slow. January, February, March, but it's not really. It's hard to say that it's slow because we're releasing stuff every week, and so there's always something going on. And not even just the releases, but we're planning so far ahead. So we're already planning later this year. So in terms of time, it's really us trying to carve out time. So it's like if we need a certain setting, like if this needs to be shot in like right now, if we wanted to shoot something to look like fall, it's great because there's no snow there's no snow on the ground right now, but all the leaves are off the trees, so we could shoot something to make it look like fall. But literally, it's just taking a weekend or a night here or a day there, and just trying to run out and shoot some stuff. So there's really no rhyme or reason to it other than once we get the idea locked in, we just try to carve out the time within our schedule.
Okay, well that seems fair enough anyway. But yeah, I mean, I just know sometimes some places seem to have a slower place, I guess, and then
Yeah,
they.
I mean, it's definitely like I would say, right now is typically a little bit lower than what it would be at the end of the year, but it's still pretty busy. So there's always, that's the one thing about, business, at least ours, and there's always something to do. Like there's always things going on. So if we want to add something to it, we have to think about the opportunity cost and whether or not, it's something that we should try to schedule, or if it's something that we can just say, no, we can't do that right now because there's other important things to do.
Now, so you mentioned it was just you at first. So so how long were you doing this by yourself before you decided that you needed to have help?
So I did everything myself. I mean, aside the printing, because I always had someone doing the printing for me, but I did everything myself for about 5 years. And right around March of 2008, I quit my full-time job and I hired my first employee. It was one of my good friends from my childhood, Tim, and he started doing all the shipping for me. And then it was just he and I for a couple years, and then I hired someone to help with customer service. I was having my second child, so it was harder for me to do all of that stuff on my own. And then she worked with us for several years, and then and then I had my friend Jess kind of come on and help fill orders a little bit, and it just sort of gradually built up. And over the years, a couple people left, and then new people came on, but now we're a crew of 7, and we've been that way for a few years now.
And it's just I guess it's just great that you are able to fulfill your dream like this and be able to, I guess, put out great quality shirts. And I gotta ask now because I bought in from you guys before, and whose idea was it to add those little extra goodies into the orders?
Oh, that was mine. I've been doing that since I was doing it on my own. It's just something that I don't know what it was. I remember getting some orders on myself, like from other companies, and I would get, I remember someone sending me like a Saved by the Bell trading card or like a mint or something, and I thought, that's a cool idea. And originally I had done the old Topps Fright-Rags cards, and I would buy them from eBay, and I would put one in each order. But the problem with that is they don't make those anymore, so you have to buy them on eBay, and sometimes they're more expensive than normal and than usual, and you're kind of at the whim of the market. So that was getting to be a little bit pricey. So I thought, well, why don't I just make my own trading card? That seems easy enough. I'll just do my own thing. So I just started making my own trading cards, and I thought, well, everyone likes stickers, so let's throw a sticker in there. And then I thought, what could I add in that would remind people of their childhood a little bit? And I remember when I was a kid, we'd always have dares with things like warheads and tear jerkers and stuff. Like I remember putting 10 tear jerkers in my mouth at my friend's house, and I burnt every single taste bud off my mouth, and I couldn't taste for about 5 days. So it just reminded me of being a kid, and one of the things that we talk about at our office is the fact that we're not really selling horror shirts. We're selling memories. We're selling connection back to your childhood. We're really a conduit to people's memories. A lot of these movies, like you and I just talked about, we saw at a very young age. I mean, you have a strong connection to Bram Stoker's Dracula because you saw it when you were really young and it stuck with you. And I think a lot of these happened, when we were really impressionable as kids. And, obviously as a kid, you're also watching cartoons on Saturday mornings, and you're eating, candy and all these other things that you do as a kid. And I think nowadays people are adults and they have more responsibilities, and they just want a little escapism. They just want to remember what it was like to be a kid again sometimes, and to watch those horror movies and maybe eat a warhead once in a while. So if we can bring them back to that, even just for a moment, they get home from work and maybe they've had a crappy day and they're just down a little bit, but they open their mailbox and they see a shirt from us from one of their favorite movies, and they get a little warhead in there. It's a momentary, even if it's temporary, it's just a nice little treat.
Well, I appreciate that. I always have to laugh every time I see the warhead. Which you kind of brought up a really interesting segue, which is, so Ben, what is your mission to bring for Fright-Rags?
That's a really, really good question. It's funny to put it that way, like a mission statement almost. I don't know if I've really distilled it down to a specific statement, but I would say that it really is mining the things in our childhood that just make us happy. And I know it sounds weird because obviously we're horror fans, but I mean we take joy in those films. So, and it's not even just horror. I mean, we've been doing some pop culture stuff too. Like, I just want to, it's like I guess what I'm saying is when we sit around and talk about ideas, and we talk about a shirt idea, or even a product idea, like when we came up with the idea of doing actual trading cards, like actually retro-style trading cards in wax paper that haven't been released for years and years. As soon as we get that idea and we all look at each other and go, wow, like, yes, I want Evil Dead trading cards, and I want them to exist. I want them to look like they came out in 1981 with the movie. I want them to look at home aside all those other trading cards that came out in the 80s, like Jaws 2 or Batman and all the other non-sports ones. So when we kind of hit on something like that, and it really kind of makes us smile, that's what I'm going for, because I know if that makes us smile, I feel like that's going to make somebody else smile, and they'll get it. So I'm always searching. I'm always searching for the next thing, or if we have a property, let's just say, I don't know, like something like The Fly, that we just put out recently. I'm always looking for something that is different, that can be unique, that just celebrates that particular movie for fans, of real hardcore fans of it. So I know it's a long-winded sort of answer, but I guess it's always searching for that perfect thing. And it's funny because, searching for perfection, you're never going to get it, and you're only as good as the last thing you did. So I always feel like there's more work to be done. I look at everything we do, and as much as I love it, and believe me, I look at some of our designs, I'm very proud of the artists we work with and the work they've been able to create for us. I'm still saying, like, it's like that mirage in the desert. You think there's something over there, and you get there, and it's just the goalpost has moved. It's just in the distance again. And so I keep searching and keep trying to find it, and that's the fun. That's the fun. The journey is the fun.
Oh, I completely 100% agree with you, and I don't really find it weird the way you were stating that one specific paragraph that you were saying, because if you really look at the horror community, we're all pretty friendly, unless we get into those diehard fans with that, but we won't go into that, but normally we are all pretty friendly. And we're pretty well done for as long as we just don't step on each other's toes when it comes to specific things. But that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, once again, you brought up another interesting segue, which would be, what is some of your favorite type of products or even movie titles that you personally, Ben, were able to put out there? Like, were there any favorite titles that you put out that you're like, oh my god, I can't believe I'm gonna be like putting this out there, and this is like one of my favorites? Or
oh yeah, I mean, there are definitely a ton of properties that we've been able to work with that I pinch myself every time I think of it. I mean, standout ones are, obviously Halloween's the biggest one, clearly. Partially because that took me a long time to get. I was trying to get that in the early days when I didn't even know what I was doing in terms of licensing. And it took many years, and rightfully so, because I wasn't ready for it in the early days. But finally, around 2013, we were able to get it. And it's funny, the day I got it and the day I got the license and signed it, so it was official that we had the right to do Halloween shirts and other apparel. I was so happy, but I was also so scared because I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't know what could be done. I didn't know what else could be done that hadn't been done before, and what were we going to do that was interesting and new and fresh. And we've had that license for going on 6 years now, and we're still coming up with ideas. And so it's been great. It's been a wonderful thing to work with the people that made that movie and to have official merchandise to have been produced for that film, the film that's my favorite film of all time, horror and non-horror. But other than that, there's other properties that pop up, and some of them aren't even the biggest ones. One that we worked with several years ago was Garfield's Halloween Adventure, which was a fun one, and it was a small license for us in the sense that you couldn't do a lot with it. I mean, Garfield is very strict. That company is very strict with how their image is being used, so it's not like we could gory them up or anything like that. But we did some very classic-looking Garfield's Halloween Adventure designs because it was the 35th anniversary of that, or is it 30th? It might have been just the 30th anniversary of the show. And that was one of my favorites growing up, that cartoon. And so to be able to work with that property in an official way was so cool. And I got to meet Jim Davis, the creator of Garfield, last year, and he remembered our stuff, and he was very happy with it. So the creator of Garfield saw our stuff and approved it and liked it. It was pretty awesome. And that's, it's Garfield. But, Garbage Pail Kids, Elvira we've worked with. I just saw her this weekend. It was really, really cool. I pinch myself every time I get a license because I remember what it was like to not do this in a licensed way. I remember what it was like to just kind of do it under the radar and hope I didn't get caught because it was unlicensed and stuff. And now we have relationships with all these companies. We're going to be doing Universal Monsters. We get to do official stuff for these classic monsters. And, so it really, when I look at sort of, I guess, our portfolio, if you will, of licenses, I just can't believe what we've been able to get. And it's really been humbling and amazing that we've been able to come this far to get the licenses. And I look at it as a responsibility to make sure we treat them right and we do right by the fans.
Oh, I completely 100% agree. You just don't want to take a license and just throw out anything and everything. You want to make sure you get it right, because otherwise your reputation is going to get hurt, and the reputation to the film is also going to get hurt, because, it's almost like they allowed it even though you own the license and everything else, and oh God, it can be a headache. So yeah, it can be a pain.
Yeah, it can, and it's funny because our style and what we've done has evolved over the years in terms of, what I thought originally what we could do in terms of the types of designs and the styles that we could put out and the ideas that we would have, and then, all these original art and all these other things that I thought were really unique and original, and certain things just did not resonate with people, and you start having to adjust and figure out what do people want, what do people like, and you're not always going to get it right, but it allows us to change and evolve. Like, for instance, for The Fly, one of our shirts is literally Jeff Goldblum's head on a shirt, and I came up with that particular one just because we had these images that the studio would allow us to use. Sometimes they just give us these assets that are approved that we can just put on a shirt, but this one was a color photo of Jeff Goldblum, and actually the rest of his body was crouched over naked. And I was looking at it and I thought, man, people just love Jeff Goldblum, even not just for The Fly, just because he's Jeff Goldblum. He's a national treasure. And I thought, what if we just cut his face out? Because he looks so weird in this picture. What if we just cut his face out, make it black and white, and blow it up on a shirt? And it reminded me of a shirt that I had as a kid with Gilligan on it, just from Gilligan's Island. And I thought, how silly is it? And it's very basic. It's literally a photograph. I didn't quote-unquote design it. I just literally cut out his head, made it black and white, added some halftone texture because I thought it'd be cool, and slapped it on a shirt. There was no, painting or anything going on in that. and yet we've reprinted it 3 times in like 2 weeks or a week even. It's been nuts. So it's funny what resonates with people and what doesn't. It's not always the most original, high color count stuff. I mean, some of that is. I mean, the other design that we had Justin Osborne do sold out as well. So it's just funny what sometimes you think is going to work doesn't, and vice versa as well.
Exactly. It's just like even when I used to go to high school, I used to take this class for like digital art, and one of the things I had to even tell myself is less is more. So the less stuff you have, the more it's actually gonna stand out. So maybe that's why, because it's just that one thing. It's not crowded with anything else. It's just boom, there it is. So maybe that might be the reason why it's one of the higher sellers, maybe.
Yeah, I think so. I think it was very, and it was sort of one of those iconic pop culture type things. I think it transcends the fly itself, and it really just becomes a Jeff Goldblum shirt. And I think that's why people liked it so much. So, luckily that one worked, and that was a hit. And where there's that one, there's plenty of others that did not hit as well. So.
Oh yeah, exactly. Um, I'm trying to figure out. So I remember seeing that one post that made me even want to try to reach out to you anyway. It was a throwback post to 2010, I want to say. It was your black and white photo there where I believe it was you just like sitting down in the empty room as you're about to leave, I think, for a bigger place. Now,
Yeah,
is that
correct.
The first or second time you actually had to upgrade your how do I want to word it, like your business room, or you know what I'm trying to say anyway?
Yeah, well, that was going to so basically. I mean, it started in my apartment, and then my wife and I moved into our first house, and then I worked out of the lower level of that house for about 5 years. We had the whole lower level taken over. We even built out a storage room in our garage. We sealed it off from the other part of the garage and made it an internal room with racks and things. And that's where my first employee, Tim, and I worked out of for a while. And then in 2009, I got that office that you saw there in that picture, and we stayed there for a year. In fact, even while we were there, we outgrew it because we had to add the room next to us within a few months. And then we were on a year lease, and by the end of the year, I knew we had to move because we were outgrowing that. And then we moved into a bigger space, which we were there from 2010 to 2013. And then in 2013, we moved again to where we are now, which is the old city morgue.
Oh, geez, I'm a morgue, huh?
Yeah, I didn't even know that when we moved in. Well, no, I knew that when we moved in. I didn't know that when I looked at the place. I was looking for places around town, obviously, trying to find a cool space. I was just trying to find, I would preferred something unique, but I was looking at everything, something we could afford, something that made sense for us. And this one place downtown kept showing up, and it just looked really nice. Like, I wasn't sure where it was downtown. Like, I mean, our downtown's not that big, but I just wasn't familiar with that particular street. And I would see pictures, and I'm like, what is this place? And so I'm like, I just need to go see it. It was out of my price range, but I'm like, I need to go look at it because I'm curious. And it was just perfect. These beautiful offices upstairs. We had a huge warehouse in the back, and this old building. It was in a really cool part of town. And the landlord, the person who owned the building, was walking around. He's like, this used to be the city morgue. And I was like, excuse me? And he's like, yep, this is where the autopsy room was. This is the drain they used to flush all the blood down and all that stuff. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to need to take this. And I mean, I actually said no at first because it was too expensive, but we negotiated some terms and things. And, we've been there ever since. Like I said, since 2013, we're going on our 6th year, and we love it there. We love our landlord. And it's just been great. It's just been a really great experience.
Well, I'm glad, and it sounds like you've all been having a good grand old time doing this anyway. Which, speaking of which, so as of today, how many people actually help run Fright-Rags?
It's 7 of us total, including me. So it's myself and 6 other people.
Very cool. Very nice.
Mm-hmm.
And you guys, and for 7 people, that you can still not be overcrowded with orders, I should say.
Yeah, I mean, it gets a little crazy. I mean, last year, September and October, we were all kind of helping with orders, and then with Black Friday and stuff, we were all downstairs in the warehouse filling orders, just because it got pretty crazy, and it does get that way around that time of year, and we all know that's going to happen, so we have to make sure we have time in our day and our schedule to just go down there and help and just get it done, because we want to make sure people are getting their orders as quick as possible. So during those times, it can get pretty crazy. But we know that's temporary. We know that's what it is. So we all chip in, we do it, we get it done, and then come the beginning of the year, it's back to pretty much normal. So we've got 2 to 3 people in the warehouse at all times filling orders. So usually that's plenty. But yeah, there are times during sales and other things where it can get a little crazy.
Ben, just out of curiosity, what are some of your top 5 go-to horror movies?
That's a good question. So if I have to think about my top 5 maybe favorites or the ones that I like the most, it's kind of scattered, and of course I think sometimes it changes with the day. Halloween is always my favorite. That's always the top. And then one of my other favorite movies is Silver Bullet. That's just a classic werewolf film that I love. Friday the 13th Part 3. And then after that, I mean, it's hard because there's things like Evil Dead or Night of the Living Dead or Texas Chainsaw, I mean, the classics, A Slumber Party Massacre is really up there. I love that movie. Again, I'm a slasher kid at heart, so I gravitate toward slasher-type films, although I do, I love zombie films and things like that. So again, it sort of changes on the day. I mean, Psycho is up there. Jaws probably has to be up there, so I'd say that's probably the 4th. And then maybe something like Sleepaway Camp 2 or Slumber Party Massacre might round it out, just because those are just so much fun.
Yeah, those are all nice choices, and I personally can't really think of any top 5 without going into so many different areas. I'd have to throw in Bram Stoker's, of course. I'd have to throw in Night of the Living Dead. I'd have to definitely throw in there Friday the 13th. And another one that I usually would throw into any list besides the good old childhood memory one of The Nightmare Before Christmas, but another cool one that I wouldn't mind adding, even though it's a comedy, is Tuck and Dale versus Evil. That movie is hilarious. And yeah, I mean, I find that to be a ritual classic in a way now, just because of the stupidity and the silliness of it.
Mm-hmm. It's a great one.
Oh yeah. Now, Ben, before I give you the last 2 questions that I have, is there anything that I haven't touched on that you would like to maybe talk about, or am I kind of hitting everything on the ball?
No, I think you're getting everything. I mean, if anything, I want anyone listening to know that we can't do this without everyone's support. We don't take it for granted that we're given the opportunity to do this because it's people like you and all of our fans and customers and friends and that support us. And we are a small company. This isn't a faceless entity where it's some corporation that is just some mindless machine. This is run by fans. It's run by people, and we don't take for granted that it's people spending their hard-earned money with us, and all we want to make sure is that we give them the best possible product and experience in return, because that's what they deserve. So it's not lost on us, and we don't take it for granted, and just to say thank you to everybody for their support.
Well, thank you for giving us the great chance of owning some really nice designs and being able to support small people like you guys. And with that note, I forget what I was gonna say too, but you were bringing me, you were reminding me of a quote now, and now I just lost it in my head. Damn it! Oh well. Well, uh, I'll probably remember it later. But you know, I think what everybody wants to know too, if you can share, is what can we expect out of, or what can we see out of Fright-Rags this year?
Oh wow. So let's see. I'm actually I'm going to open my release schedule here and kind of go through some things. Well, I mean we've literally got releases coming up every week. But we've got Big Trouble in Little China coming up next month, and I'm really excited about this collection. It's something that we were a little worried about at first because of some of the limitations that we have with the license and the likeness rights. But wow, we were when I looked at it recently and what we were doing, I thought this is going to be pretty awesome. So I'm very excited about that. We've got some new Pet Cemetery stuff coming up next month for the release of the new film. It's classic Pet Cemetery. It's not for the new film, but it's because next month not only is the new movie coming out, but it's also the 30th anniversary of the original film. And we're going to be doing some other stuff. We've got some Vestron video stuff coming up, so some titles under that heading like Waxwork and Return of the Living Dead Part 3 and Blood Diner. Let's see what else. A couple big things coming up this summer. Not only are we celebrating the 15th anniversary of Saw, but we've got Ghostbusters coming up as well as Universal Monsters. And then
I can't wait for that. Universal Monsters is my go-to.
That's going to be great. And then rounding out the summer, we've got Devil's Rejects and Blair Witch Project as well. It's just a couple of the things that we're doing. I mean, we've got tons more, but that's just a few.
That's awesome. I can't wait. And Ben, for your last question is, for anybody that's trying to start their own small business, maybe it being like a clothing line or something else really that involved trying to get licenses and stuff, what would your advice be for somebody trying to start out to make their own business?
I mean, my advice is to just start, really, because I get this question a lot from people via email and things, and you know, people wondering if they should trademark their name or if they should do this or do that, and you know, a lot of times people get paralysis of analysis where they sit around thinking of what they should do first and they don't actually do anything. And they get all these ideas and they write them down and they mull it over and they think, but they end up getting just stopped in their own tracks in their own way because they don't ever take action. And weirdly enough, you know, I was so ignorant when I started. You know, it's not like I knew all of this going into it. I didn't know anything. So it was literally ignorance is bliss. I literally just started and figured it out. It was like, you know, you just got to go in a direction and start and adjust. And the other thing about that is it's not going blindly. You're going in and then you see what you're doing and then you adjust. You learn and you adjust and you learn more and you adjust. You never stop learning. And I think if someone tries to know everything going into it, they're going to be sorely mistaken. You just have to get into it and learn. To me, this is like continuing education for me. This is like college almost. You know, I am learning about my business and business in general every single day. I'm learning something new all the time, and it's just constant adjusting and constant learning and taking what I learn and practicing it. And if you can go in with that attitude and just sort of jump in and start swimming, then you have a good shot.
And that's the spirit. That's the way to look at it. You just take it every day and just beat the shit out of it if you have to, but just get it done. And you'll be able to ride to the very top just like you, in a way. But, you know, you're 16 years into it, man. I mean, like I said, congratulations. That's a really, I mean,
Hmm.
I guess in a way, Ben, if you look at this, 16 years. Now, did you ever think to yourself that this would be going on for 16 years, or did you think well, maybe this might happen? Like,
I don't. I know I wanted it to. I mean, obviously, the desire and the I really wanted it to be that way. I didn't know if it could, and every time I hit a certain goal, like this weird, like not that I had goals, but like oh, if I made, if the business made this certain amount of money, like I had this in my head, like if the business made this certain amount of money, like I'd be set. Not meaning financially, but meaning like we'd be good. Like you hit a level, right? Like oh, like okay, then it's just on cruise control, if you will, right? And then I
right,
realized that once I hit that level, that there's more headaches and more issues and more problems to deal with. So there's that sort of level of comfort. Well, first of all, you should never be there. But second of all, um, because you have to stay innovative, you have to stay on top of things. You can't rest on your laurels, and you can't have anything on cruise control. But my desire for that sort of stability or safety was like, oh, well, if I hit this certain number in business, then we're good. No, that's a complete fallacy because I've doubled that number in my head, and it's still harder than it ever was. In some ways, it gets even harder because there's more complex issues to deal with. So you just gotta. I feel like I lost my train of thought. I apologize, but you just gotta stick with it. And the other thing is too, I want to mention, and I appreciate you mentioning the 16 years thing, and I really do. But you know, and what people need to realize is there were at least 5 to almost, well, maybe not 10 quite, but almost 10. No one knew who I was. No one knew who the Fright-Rags was. And then what I mean by no one is, there were many years in the beginning, or many times in the beginning, I would get one shirt order a week. Like it wasn't like I decided to do this and off to the races, here I was, and then it's this fairy tale ending where the credits roll and it's happily ever after. I started this business and I got a few orders in the beginning and then nothing. And this is before, again, Facebook and Instagram and things and hashtags and all this other stuff. And it was hard. And I would go 2 weeks and not have any orders. And I would say, you know what, it's probably time to give this up. I'm getting married, I'm moving to a house and whatever, and I need to kind of be an adult. And all of a sudden, I'd get an order, just one order out of nowhere from someone in Australia or someone in California or wherever. And I just stare at it and say, this person in this moment decided to spend his money or her money to get something from me because they found it somehow. And it was like this. It was almost like this glimmer of like light in the distance, if you will. And it sounds weird, I know, but I said, you know what? Stick it out. Just stick it out. Just keep going. But I would toil away, and when I got home, and in the wee hours of night and in the morning, when no one knew who I was, no one was emailing me or asking me to be on podcasts or anything. You know what I mean? Like it was me by myself, and I think back to that a lot because that's what got me here, and that's what's going to keep me going. And of course, now I have help, and I couldn't do this without help. I mean, it's not just me; it's 6 other people, and I could not run this business without them. But I know that I need to lead it and push it somewhere, and that's where that drive comes from because it was there back when it was just me. And so I don't know where this goes from here. Excuse me. I feel the same way I did 16 years ago, that I want to keep it going another 16 or 36 years. I wish I could see the future because that same fear and anxiety about the comfortability and the stability that I so want in my life that other people might have from their 9 to 5 doesn't exist with me. But I know that's where I need to be. And so you wrestle with that and you find comfort in it somehow.
well, I just did not want to interrupt that really beautiful statement that you just said, because that is a really good answer. And to be honest, Ben, if you ever want to come back to talk about anything, and I mean anything, in the future, you are more than welcome to come back on and talk with me and Tessa. And even if you just wanted to jump on just to share your thoughts on maybe different topics that we have coming up in the future, you're more than welcome to come on and just state your opinion, because that's what we like to do is, we don't try to be the popular people. We just want to be ourselves and really give out our real opinions rather than feel like it's, like it was already written, if you get what I'm trying to say.
Yeah,
And
I get it.
yeah, so I just want to say, but yeah, if you are ever interested in coming back on and sharing stuff and of the future of Fright-Rags, you're more than welcome to, or just come on and share your thoughts. And we'll be right there helping you every step of the way that we can as well.
No, I thank you very much for that. I really appreciate it.
Well, you're very welcome. And Ben, for people listening, where can people find Fright-Rag and keep up to date with all the products and stuff that you will be releasing?
Well, you can go to the website. So that's fright-rags.com. So there's got to be a hyphen in there, fright-rags.com. You can sign up for our email newsletter right on the homepage. If you scroll to the bottom, just stick your email in there and we'll send you updates. You can also follow us on social, facebook.com/Fright-Rags, all one word. Instagram and Twitter is just @Fright-Rags, all one word.
Awesome. And I just subscribed to your YouTube because I didn't realize you had a YouTube, so I just subscribed to
Oh,
it.
awesome. Yeah, you can go on our YouTube channel too as well, and we update that somewhat frequently as well.
Well, if you ever, like I said, if you'd ever like help sharing anything, just give me a shout and I'll do my best to help you guys out as well.
Sounds
And
great. I really appreciate it.
oh, you're very welcome. And Ben, thank you so much for your time. And I look forward to seeing what you and Fright-Rags have in the store of the future of 2019 and beyond for the other additional 16 more years to come. So
Well, thanks. We've definitely got a lot coming up, so I appreciate it.
you're very welcome. And for everybody else listening, thank you so much for, I guess, listening to this great conversation. And I hope you guys enjoyed as well, just like I did, because, it's always great to have different people come on and talk with us. And not to put any pressure on Ben right now, but Ben is actually the first person we got to talk with that actually has a clothing business. We did try reaching out to other couple people, but yeah, Ben was the only one to actually reply back. So I was very grateful.
Well, it's my pleasure.
Yeah, thank you again. And everybody else, you already know what the drill is. To stay scary.